All righty, so let's get started. Thank you everybody for joining our webinar, A Better Way to Curate Auction Items. My name is Mike Salino from ClickBid, and for those who were expecting to see Matt, I apologize. A lot of times he's the one who's doing this. He got held up and emergencies happen. So again, thank you for joining and learning how to boost your event experience by securing auction items. All right, so first, again, we talk a lot about, ways to create time in nonprofiters' days to, you have a ton of things that you have to do. One of them is not going after auction items and, having to worry about those daunting tasks whenever you're setting up an event. How difficult is it? And hopefully at the end of this webinar, you'll be able to, to utilize that. Our guest speaker today is Al McDonald from TravelPledge. He has a really good presentation to share with you as far as that's concerned. And yes, I have been working in the nonprofit field for about 8 or 9 years. And, gathering auction items is very difficult. But not, it's not a task that shouldn't be hard. All right. So if we go to the next slide, that'd be great. In ClickBid, for those of you who have been with us for a long time or have seen this, we have ways that you can upload items quickly into our software by using, these forms that you're seeing on the screen right now. It's easy. You can use a spreadsheet. You can export. You can show these live, and or not show these live, but you can actually have your solicitors come in, fill out these forms, and upload these items right into ClickBid seamlessly. But it does take time, and creating donors for this, thank you letters, all of these things are issues that you have to deal with. What I want to do now is I want to bring Al in and introduce him. He has a great presentation on how TravelPledge can assist with some of these tasks. Al?
Hi, thanks, Mike. Yeah, so first to introduce TravelPledge, we source fun experiences for your auction. We specialize in everything from the small and local, that might be a golf round or a bed and breakfast getaway, or a virtual wine tasting, to the larger international vacations, all-inclusives and more, to kind of give your auction a wow factor. But we know that your auction cannot consist entirely of TravelPledge items. So today we're going to talk about how you can source most efficiently those donated items from your donor base. So a little bit about me. I'm the Chief Product Officer for TravelPledge. I am in charge of our experience procurement strategy, which experiences we go after, how we partner with hotels, resorts, and other hospitality partners, as well as our NPO, nonprofit and winner experience with our software and redemption. In addition, I write for our blog.travelpledge.com, about how to maximize funds at your auction. So for how many does this seem familiar? You call 200 businesses, you send 900 emails trying to get auction items, and you get this: thank you for considering our company. Unfortunately, we won't be able to provide a donated auction item. And this is if you're lucky. At least you get closure on your outreach. Well, we're going to talk about how to outreach for auction items a little bit more efficiently. And the first step is we're going to set some goals for ourselves. So we don't want to work towards goals that aren't really our goals, such as procuring too many items or the wrong items. So we'll start with the number of items that you should look to procure. You want to include no more than one item for every 2 bidders you expect at your event. And the reason for this is that there's a phrase in auctions, and that is that the winning bidder doesn't make you your money. It is the second place bidder, because they have driven up the bids. So you want competitive bidding among your items. And to promote that, you don't want to include more than one item for every two bidders. You can include less than that, just do not include more than that ratio. On average, for most auctions, around 6 to 12 live auction items and 25 to 40 silent auction items is right for mini auctions. Your mileage may vary. That's just where we see the most successful auctions fall in that range. Now, all that I said before can be fine-tuned based off of what your overarching objectives are for your event. So if your primary objective is to raise money with a side dish of engaging your donors, you may want to auction fewer items to promote that competitive bidding that I was talking about. By contrast, if your goal is to engage donors with a side of raising money, which of course is important, you may want to auction more items so you have more winners, just so everybody can get an item at the starting bid, or something that's approachable to them. They feel like they can participate in your auction. Another overarching theme for your goal setting is you want quality over quantity. More items is not always better. Lots of times a poor quality item, just by its proximity to a high quality item, it will degrade the perceived quality of the high quality item. So make sure that it's okay for you to have fewer items, just make sure that they are all quality. Quality does not mean expensive. We'll talk a little bit more about what that means. It just means that somebody's not gonna bid on it, and then when they get it, they are just sorely disappointed, or you just know it when you know quality when you see it. So what makes a good auction item? High perceived value. That's going to be kind of a primary driver of what kind of bid that you can command. Broad appeal. Niche items have their place, especially if your audience is, say, very golf focused. Say you're running a golf event, you might want more golf focused items. But for mini auctions, just think about how many people would consider bidding on this item so you can get that competitive bidding. Emotional appeal is important. An example of this would be a class project for a school that can drive up bids from, say, parents who are proud of what their children have accomplished, or something that a grandparent can buy for a child and make them feel good and make the child happy. Difficult to shop, that's kind of the scarcity argument. You don't want, if you have an auction item that this is the only place where somebody can get that item, that is good, because they're going to have to bid high to get it, because they're not going to get a different opportunity to get the item. Simple to explain, that's ironically tough for me to explain right now, but if you have something with lots of restrictions, or it's an extremely specific item in a very unique use case, that's not going to be a good item. But okay, vacation to the Bahamas, everybody understands what that is, and you can explain it in just a few words and a few bullets. And finally, the ability to sell multiple. This is great if you have lots of competitive bidders, and then you can follow up with the second place, third place, et cetera, and say, hey, would you also like to purchase this auction item? So now that you have your goals in terms of number of items and an idea of what does a good item look like, the next step is we're going to list the people you know. So that's going to be yourself, family, friends, coworkers, neighbors, places you shop, service professionals, times you, your board, your volunteers. Who all do they know? So make a big list. And if you really think about everybody who is in your network, you're going to come up with quite a lot of people. Then you're going to focus on the who instead of the what. The reason for this is it's much more efficient than cold calling because you're talking to people you know. It's not a cold call. Less intimidating for volunteers. If you're just telling volunteers, hey, we're expecting you to go make contact with people you already know and have contacted before, they're going to give you more effort, more hours. If you're asking them to make 1,000 calls to a bunch of businesses, get rejected 1,000 times, you're probably going to have quite a bit of attrition, not too many volunteers helping you out with your items. And finally, it promotes creative thinking about your items. And when you start on the what, you're going to come up with the same list of items that everybody else comes up with. When you focus on the who, then you can abstract it to, okay, now what can they donate to my auction? And you might come up with some ideas that had never occurred to you before because you had never thought about what a particular person could contribute to your auction. So for each person you know, you should ask yourself, what are their hobbies? What's their profession? What skills do they have? What personal connections do they have? Could they connect you to somebody else who has a fantastic item for your auction? So for example, let's say you have a friend who is a member of an exclusive country club. You can ask them to host 3 golfers for a round out at the club. We've had auctions where the member of an exclusive club auctioned 1 round of golf in a day at the club for over $9,000. Now that's a special golf club, but there is a willingness to pay for extremely exclusive experiences. So this would be an example of, okay, who do I know? What can they offer? Another one is, let's say your neighbor is an artist. You may ask a piece of artwork for your event, or perhaps offer a piece of art that they're having trouble selling, perhaps. More examples: vacation home rental, a band performance for those who are in a band, catered meal from a chef you know, sports ticket from a season ticket holder, lessons, a signed book, family photo shoot, landscaping services, great way to engage teenagers. I put this here, do not auction pets. We see that sometime in some auctions. This is kind of a no-no in terms of you don't have any way to vet who the winning bidder's ability to take care of an animal. So that's a bit of an aside, but important to remember. All right, and lastly, among the people you know, do not forget to ask yourselves, including your organization. So a lot of great items are privileges that you can grant somebody just by the nature of your position in the organization. So some examples, which are primarily school focused, but I'm sure you can come up with some for your specific situation. Best seat at graduation, the right to choose next year's gala theme, a special parking space, a special product named after you. You could be a parade honoree, class project for schools. I was at a high school baseball game last week, and they had auctioned off, the school had at their gala, the right to throw out the first pitch at a playoff game. So it was a really special moment where I guess a grandparent had bought it for their 7-year-old grandchild who comes out, throws the first pitch. The catcher comes out, shakes the kid's hand, signs the ball. The coach escorts the kid from the mound. So you've essentially created just a lifelong memory for this child, raised a couple $100, and what did it cost you? Hardly anything. Another example would be lunch with your executive director. For those who are really involved in your charity, they would love to pick the brain of the executive director, learn what the vision is for your nonprofit. And it's a better way to keep that particular donor very engaged in your nonprofit's activities so that you retain them as a donor for years to come. Okay, so now you've listed the people you know. Now it's time to make the ask about auction items. So obviously, I think phone and face-to-face are preferable to email. Obviously, email has its place, but if you can call somebody or speak to them face-to-face, that's going to be a better way to go after the items. One of the tricks when asking for an item is to make the ask and then just hold the silence. So would you be interested in donating X item to our fundraising auction? And then it might be your inclination while there's kind of this awkward silence to say, I know it's a lot to ask. And then they'll say, yeah, I can't really do it. But just hold the silence. Trust me on this. And just let them, if they want to reject you, they can do that on their own. But just wait and see what they say. Some tips for making the ask. Ask everyone on your list. You will be surprised who says yes and donates a fantastic item. Don't count anybody else because you don't think they have anything to donate. Ask everyone. Be specific. This goes back to what we did in the previous step where you thought about what does this person have to donate to my auction. So they might not know what a good auction item is, but you do. So be specific about what you'd like them to donate so they don't suggest something that's not valuable to you. Be flexible. They might have some different ideas and some good ideas, obviously, but kind of anchor them with an idea of what you're looking for. Cater your message. This is important if, say, you're talking to a local business. You could emphasize the level of promotion that that business will get among your audience, your potentially relatively affluent audience, so that they can see, okay, this is not only an expression of goodwill, this is a perfect marketing opportunity. By contrast, if you're talking to an individual, you may talk about how important it is to fundraise for your cause, and they may find that a more compelling reason to donate to your auction. Never apologize for asking. It's always an honor to help a friend out. So you're not doing them a disservice by thinking of them in being a potential donor for your cause. Leverage success. People like to be part of success stories. They do not like to be part of failures. So what you don't want to do is come off as desperate. We really need items for our auction. Nobody's donated. Can you please help us? That's going to not draw the quality of item that you're looking for, and that's going to result in a lot of rejections. Talk about how you've had a lot of momentum for your auction. You're expecting lots of attendees to come. You're going to raise a lot of money, but you need this one item to really round out your auction. That's a much more compelling way to ask for auction items. Finally, when making the ask, don't forget to ask for multiples. We talked about that as a criterion for a quality auction item. So if somebody's already said yes once, just see if that same person will donate multiple of the same one. You'll be surprised how many that you can get for asking. And then in terms of, let's say it's a live auction item, now you don't have to spend more time presenting a new item to get to double your winning bid amount. So always remember to ask for multiples. So with that said, I'm going to pause for questions here before I conclude the presentation. So if you have questions, please drop them in the chat and I'll do my best to answer as many as possible. Give another 30 seconds. I'm not seeing any questions. Okay, how do you respond when somebody offers a real poor item? That is a great question. It's always okay to say no and suggest something else. And you just have to be candid with your feedback about what you want. Part of that can be mitigated by asking for something specifically ahead of time so that they know what good looks like. So hopefully that can reduce your incident of somebody offering a poor item. Okay, so if it's a silent auction, when you list multiple, make them separate entries, right? That kind of depends on the type of item. So if you think an item can have maybe a few bidders, but not tons of bidders, you may want to list it as only one, because you want those bidders to drive each other's bids up. They don't necessarily have to know you have multiple available, so you can drive the bids up and then after the fact come back to the second place bidder and say, hey, actually I have another one available, would you like to purchase it? So that's a pretty good strategy if you feel like you have a couple of relatively price insensitive bidders who can bid each other up. Okay, which is best, opening up the auction to just the people at the event or everyone regardless of ticket purchase? That can depend on which items. So you can have, we see often you have an online only items where if you're at the event, you can bid on your phone. If you're not at the event, you can bid on the items, but then some live in-person items only where you must be at the event to attend. That may be better for your live auction where you have a live auctioneer who can really gin up momentum in the room. And if you have some items you think you can use as a carrot to draw people to your event. But if you have a very geographically dispersed supporter base, it makes more sense to opening it up to everyone, even if they're not at the event, because maybe the majority of your supporters can't attend your event. Would you recommend combining items or auctioning them off individually? I do have a section about bundling items later in the presentation, so I'm going to hold off on answering that. How do you feel about payment of a small amount for good items? That is okay if you are either getting a discount on the item or that item rounds out a bundle of items to make the whole greater than the sum of the parts. Okay, what's the protocol if someone does not bid on, something is not bid on at your auction? You still follow up with the donor of the item. You thank them for their participation, and then you see if you can't raise money somehow by raffling off that item or somehow putting that item towards some sort of fundraising purpose. Your last resort is returning the item, but really try not to do that. Try to put it towards some sort of fundraising purpose. Okay, we had any suggestions? We had art in our silent auction, but have not had a good response. So having auction items on its own is not enough to run a successful auction. You must focus in addition on audience development. So if you have something that is not performing well, you need to determine, is it the people that we have in the room or is it the item? Because it could be both, it could be neither, it could be one or the other. But while this presentation is about sourcing items, it does not replace audience development. Okay, recommendation for approaching airlines for airfare. You know, this presentation is about approaching people you know. So you can absolutely apply for airfare to airlines, but your likelihood of success is low because they get thousands of those requests. How soon before the event should I actively ask for items? Well, you should ask in about the 5 month before your event, all the way up into your event. We recommend starting your auction planning at least 6 months before your event, ideally earlier for large auctions. But sometimes it takes people multiple times being asked to donate something. So you may want to ask 5 months before your event, 3 months before your event to the people who still haven't replied, 2 months, 1 month, etc. How do we go about pricing experiences like lunch with the executive director? Well, certainly you're going to want your costs covered. It kind of depends on your audience. If you think you're going to get lots of bids on it, then you might want to start it at a lower starting bid just to drum up that competitive bidding, where people now are less interested in necessarily winning the item and more interested in beating the person they're bidding against. So that would be a strategy for something where you think it could be very competitive bidding. If you think that maybe there'd be 1 or 2 people interested and that's it, then I would start the bidding a little bit higher, say at $200 for a small to medium sized organization. If you are the United Way and the executive director's time is extremely valuable, just from a dollars per hour perspective, then you may want to start it a little bit higher. Okay. If you have a basket that is high value item and the same group of people usually attend every year, should you have a similar basket every year? Yes. The best identifier for a good auction item is what did it sell for last year. So always look at the data from years prior, and the ones that sell well, you want to include them this year. It's great to build a tradition where you have some new items, but you also have some items where people know to expect it, and they may get excited about talking with other bidders about it. Go, oh, I'm gonna win this one this year, and then they might compete to win the item. Someone said giving back a poor item, we have paired it with another item. Yeah, that's a good way to put that item towards a good fundraising purchase. Is it in bad taste to auction a golf package to another golf location when you're hosting a golf event? That kind of depends on the golf course where you're hosting the event. If they've given you lots of special treatment and discounts, then maybe it's in bad taste. But ultimately, if you're renting out the course, then you shouldn't apologize for using your rental space to your maximum fundraising capacity. Do you need to emphasize the tax deduction benefits? It depends on the item. Some items are more tax deductible than others. So, for example, a donated week at a vacation property is not tax deductible. So you wouldn't emphasize it in that situation. So talk with your tax consultant about what's deductible and use it as a carrot where it makes sense for somebody to donate. I wouldn't lead with it. I would lead with more of the feel goods about how you can help our cause raise a lot of money. Okay, so keep those questions coming. I'm going to move on with the presentation, and then we'll have another chance to answer some of your questions. All right, step 4. Now that you have your items, we're going to market the items. You want to make sure you get great photos. So here's an example on the left. This is a pretty great photo. I look at it, I get it. I don't have to click in. I know exactly what I'm going to get: a hoodie, hat, koozie, CD, and sticker. This, on the other hand, they haven't uploaded the photo yet, or maybe they don't plan to. They just think the description explains it enough. It doesn't. Invest in good photos. For your item descriptions, include all of the important details. Bidders will assume the worst if you don't provide them with the details. So a confused mind says no, provide them with the details, and that will increase your bids. Avoid flowery language. By contrast, you want a good, skimmable description. So you don't want to occupy people's time on items that they're not interested in by making them read very dense prose. Give them an easy way to understand the item and invest in concision. As for the starting bids for your fully donated item, you want to start the bidding at about 30% of the fair market value. For some of the subjective things like luncheon with the executive director, that might be tough to determine the fair market value. Do your best, but around 30% is a good starting bid, with 10% of the fair market value being the suggested bid steps. For very expensive items, you may want to lower the bid step percentage so people aren't having to bid an additional $500, say, on an extremely high value item. So you may lower this to 5% for your bid steps. So what makes the live auction versus the silent auction? Because the live auction, you may have a live auctioneer who can really drum up momentum in the room and raise bids. As I said before, the most important determination would be look at last year's data. The things that got a lot of bids and drove bids up very high are going to be the ones you want to include in your live auction. This may be a good way to promote a silent auction item that performed fantastically well to your live auction. If it's not clear looking at the data, go back to the benchmarks that I gave you: high perceived value, broad appeal, emotional appeal, difficult to shop, simple to explain, and the ability to sell multiple. All right, on to baskets. So baskets are great for kind of smaller items where they don't deserve to occupy their own space on your silent auction table. So the idea is the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Great for lesser value items that meet a theme. Not all themed basket items need to be donated. So if there is say you have a golf round and a club donated, well, that's just two, but it doesn't cost you that much to then add some golf balls that maybe you even pay retail value for, and a glove, and now it looks like a much more compelling package. So you can augment some of the donated items with some non-donated items, and ultimately you're going to make a return on that. Miscellaneous and mystery are valid basket themes. This is it for those small items that just don't have a place. It can just be a potpourri of items. Maybe it's in a mystery box and people get what they get, and that's okay. But try to put every item that you get to good use, and that could mean being creative about how you package and market it. All right, the final step is to wrap up your auction. So deliver your items to winners, connect item donors with winning bidders if necessary. So the example of that would be if somebody had donated a round of golf at their country club, you would need to obviously connect them with the winning bidders, and then obviously write thank you letters and call and say thank you. Communicate how much their item helped. If their item didn't sell for a ton, you can talk about how successful your event was, and it wouldn't have been such a success without them. But make sure you thank everybody because you want to retain them for next year. It's going to make your job much easier. Okay, I'll pause for a few more questions here. All right, say a package is worth $500. Can we set the starting bid at 500? Would that still draw people in? That depends on how shoppable your package is. So if it is easy for somebody to go on Amazon and say, oh, well, this item costs $500 and the starting bid is 500, that's not so good. If it's not easy to price exactly what it is, but technically it's worth 500, but you think you can start the bidding at 500, by all means, you can do that. Should we include a gift certificate card amount in the description? I think that would make sense if it's part of a bundle. Otherwise, if it's a gift certificate that has a very obvious value to it, you may want to sell that as a fixed price item instead of taking bids on it. All right, what makes a good auctioneer? That is a little bit outside of the scope of this presentation, but ask around, call references. An auctioneer can cost you $3,000 to $5,000, and they could, with the right audience, increase your revenue by tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So ask around and look at track records. What if you're doing this for the first time? I was thinking a silent auction for the travel, and emailing our donors to let them know. What do you think about that? Yeah, you got to start somewhere. Focus on audience development in terms of building your donor base. You may not want to start necessarily with an auction. You may want to start with a different engagement event with a small auction, as opposed to asking the auction to carry the whole load of your fundraising. So just, the auction is one tool to keep your donors engaged and raise money. All right, raffle items. Those would be the same as auction items. You just see what doesn't belong in the auction, and that you think you might be able to sell raffle tickets for. What are the hot items these days? That goes back to those criteria I gave you: broad appeal, not shoppable, exclusive, emotional, etc. Okay, how do we charge for delivery? Auction softwares give you the ability to add a delivery fee for your items. So you can automatically charge it on checkout, or you can list it in the item description and say, if we're shipping to XYZ state, then that's going to require this delivery, which we will charge you for after the event before shipping. All right, how much over the fair market value should a buy it now price be set? I would say at least 20% over the fair market value. You can go up to 150% or double the fair market value if you think that there's going to be competitive bidding. If it's really competitive bidding, you may not even want to set a buy it now. Creative titles for items and packages, or should they be more literal? It depends on how hard the package is to explain. So if it's extremely hard to explain, then you don't want to be overly cute about it. You want people to get it. But if it's a bundle, a basket, you can be pretty creative with your titles, because usually a creative title is going to be also indicative of what's in the bundle. Okay, you have to have a license to raffle items. Yes, that's a good point. State per state. You may want to, instead of having a raffle, have what's called a sweepstakes, which means there's no consideration for entry. So you basically you sell tickets, but if you want to be entered, you don't have to buy a ticket. That's what lots of promotional sweepstakes that you see are, is they're sweepstakes, not necessarily raffle, because you're not required to buy a ticket. We are over wicker baskets. So many years of wicker basket. Any more modern basket suggestions? Guess I don't quite understand that question. Is that a modern material to literally make the basket out of? That is not my domain expertise. Okay, are we able to auction off liquor, or is that state controlled? That would be a question for your legal counsel. Okay, that's all the questions we have. So I'm going to wrap up this presentation, hopefully give you guys a few more minutes back. ClickBid and TravelPledge have an integration that makes it easy to add TravelPledge items to your ClickBid event. Within ClickBid, find the TravelPledge widget for no risk vacation packages and more. Then fill out your nonprofit's information. Then you'll be able to browse our experiences. We specialize in vacations as well as other experiences that are going to really impress your bidders. We work on a percentage model where you keep up to 60% of the winning bid amount for these particular vacations, and are invoiced for 40%. So even if something sells at the starting bid, you're going to make a meaningful donation. Then you can sync your selections to ClickBid. That's going to sync all of the item descriptions, photos, etc., into your ClickBid event, and you can mark them as visible to sell to your audience. For the ones that sell, then ClickBid's going to send us that sales information, and we'll email you a link to pay your invoice. And we'll be able to, once you pay your invoice, we'll send winning bidders their certificates and redemption instructions. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to contact me. I'm Alex at TravelPledge.com. You can find our website, www.travelpledge.com, or visit blog.travelpledge.com for news and educational content for fundraising events. Well, I want to thank everyone for their time today. And thank you, ClickBid, for hosting me. I'm glad that I could share this important information with your audience.
Thank you, Al. And thank you, everybody, for attending. As Al was going through the 5 steps, like I said in the beginning, there's a lot to gathering auction items. And if you follow these steps, you'll be very successful. And then, just to reiterate the last part of it, the integration between ClickBid and TravelPledge is really good and kind of takes some of those tedious tasks out of the way because they're already in our integration. So also great questions from everybody. Just a little housekeeping. We will be sending the webinar out to everybody. I saw at our high point, we were at about 150 participants. So, thank you for attending. And we'll get this out in a little while, and you'll also be able, you have Alex's contact information there, and you'll be able to ask questions when we send this webinar out as well. So again, thank you for participating. Al, any last words?
No, thank you, everyone.
All right, guys, take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.